How's it going today, guys? College Game Day, week number 3. It is Saturday, September 19th. We got lots of great games coming up today. I'm going to be getting you guys ready for the games that will be kicking off in just a half hour. And we're also going to be going through the schedule for the Big Ten. The Big Ten actually just released their schedule for the entire season, so it's gonna be pretty fun to go over that. I mean, yeah, we got lots of great schedules. I mean, it's gonna be a lot to go over. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun season for sure. Really glad that the Big Ten's coming back. It's gonna be big for college football in general. Yep, Alpha, that is correct. Yeah, Alpha, did you see Nebraska's actually playing Ohio State week number 1? That's gonna be crazy. Yeah, once again, guys, it's going to be a little bit laggy here today. I've actually got some new equipment, so hopefully that's going to be fixed up. And I can guarantee you guys within the next couple of weeks, it's going to be completely fixed up. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, though. Really looking forward to getting the Big Ten started. Of course, it's going to be still another month, so we still got 5 or so more weeks of no more Big Ten football. But yeah, we got some good games coming up today. Miami and Louisville is the headliner. That one's going to be coming up here tonight. That is definitely going to be your game of the week. I mean, both teams coming into that game are pretty much equally matched, so it's going to be fun to see who wins that one for sure. I mean, Louisville obviously. Miami came into this season really not looking all that great, but with Derek Hand quarterback, they're certainly a team that I think you need to be watching out for as we move on. Nothing personal, just business. Yeah, I understand that, Alpha. I don't know. I just can't believe for Nebraska. All right, this is going to sound crazy, but me being a Nebraska fan, basically what they did was they scheduled us. They put Ohio State in week number 1 on the road in Columbus. And then they've got Wisconsin coming to Lincoln in week number 2. And then they've got, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for Nebraska. But, I mean, as far as Ohio State goes, yeah, you got Nebraska in the first week. And so, yeah, it's going to be a fun season. Really glad that the Big Ten got things going again this week. I mean, obviously, many people, including myself, thought that it would happen, but yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool to see what happens there. Obviously, as far as today's games go, we got a lot of games coming up at noon. There aren't as many games tonight. We do see quite a few into this afternoon, which we got a few good ones. Starting off with your noon games coming up in just a half hour, noon Eastern. We've got Tulsa and Oklahoma State. That should be a fun matchup there. Obviously, we actually had that as a simulated matchup for one of our tournament games a couple of weeks back. Which Oklahoma State won that. So, I mean, Oklahoma State's favored by a heavy amount in this one. 23.5 is actually the line favoring Oklahoma State in that game against Tulsa. We also see Navy and Tulane also at noon Eastern. That game's going to be coming up there as well. Tulane's currently favored by 6.5. Syracuse and 25th ranked Pittsburgh is going to be on at noon as well. Pittsburgh is currently favored by 21.5 there as well. So we got lots of games where the lines are pretty heavy. And it's kind of surprising to me to see Pittsburgh especially leading Syracuse in the line by 21.5. I mean, that's expecting a major blowout there. We also got South Florida and Notre Dame, 1:30 p.m. Central, 2:30 Eastern. Notre Dame's currently favored by 25.5 in that one. We got a good one, though, at noon between Boston College and Duke. That should be a fun one there as well. And then we got, what else do we have? Yeah, Citadel's playing Clemson today. Expect Clemson. Clemson, the line literally is 48 towards Clemson in that one. That is probably the most heavy line I've ever seen. Clemson is, yeah, they should absolutely wipe the floor on the Citadel this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then as far as the night games go, I mean, really, we do not have any afternoon games. We got UCF and Georgia Tech at 3:30, and UCF's ranked 14th coming into that one. Georgia Tech is at home. However, UCF is favored by 7.5. That should be a good matchup there between both of those teams. And then, yeah, looking at tonight, we got a couple of good ones. We got Miami and Louisville once again. Our one ranked versus ranked game this week, and it looks like Louisville is favored by 1.5 points. So, yeah, considering Louisville's at home, that's probably pretty accurate. And then we also got Wake Forest and NC State, 8 p.m. Eastern. Wake Forest is favored by 2. So that should be a fun one there as well. Hey, Michael, thanks for the tip. Ohio State at Penn State on Halloween. Yeah, that's going to be a great game there between Ohio State and Penn State. I'm really glad we got to see that one this season. Obviously, it was going to be a big game in general last year. Yeah, it's going to be that'll be a fun matchup there for sure between Ohio State and Penn State. I mean, looking at the Big Ten schedule now, I mean, if you look at some of the games this week or in week number 1, they're starting off really quick. We got several really good week 1 games. Minnesota's playing Michigan. That's going to be on October 24th. We also got, once again, Nebraska and Ohio State. That should be a very intriguing one there. We got, what else do we have? Michigan and Minnesota. We also have Penn State, Indiana. That could be a fun one there as well. So yeah, we got lots of great games. Indiana and Penn State even should be a good one too. Or yeah, we just went over that one. Yeah, Indiana and Penn State. That should be a fun one there. And I believe it looks like that game is going to be in Indiana for that one. Watch out for Indiana this season, though. I've told this to many people. Like Michael Penix, their quarterback, easily one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and easily one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the nation, I think. I mean, if you look at his stats from last year, obviously, I mean, he is extremely underrated in my opinion. He's not quite as underrated as Kyle Trask or anything, but I definitely think he's a quarterback that's very underrated. Do not sleep on Indiana this season. And obviously, looking at Indiana's schedule kind of going into it, I mean, you got Penn State in week 1. You got Rutgers in week 2, which that should be an easy win. Then you got, thing is though, they actually have a really tough schedule. You got to play Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin at some point in your schedule. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough schedule for them, but I definitely think Indiana's a team that you got to watch out for in general. King Mike asks, Louisville or Miami, who do you got? That's a good question. I mean, obviously, that's a very tough game to predict. I actually did a preview on that a couple of days ago. However, I probably would have to go with Miami in that one. I'm actually going against the line. I think Miami goes into Louisville and gets a huge win. I think with Derek King, I mean, obviously last week was a bit of a rough one for him, mainly because, I mean, he was only his first week with Miami, so it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I definitely think now coming into week number 2 with a game of experience underneath him, that's going to help him a ton going into this week. I think that Derek King and Miami get a huge win over Louisville here tonight. And, I mean, yeah, you've got the spread that's currently saying Louisville by 1.5. I think the ESPN FPI is favoring them like 75%. So, obviously, yeah, it's kind of messy there. But, yeah, I definitely do have Miami tonight. I'm going with them. I'd say they'll probably win it by a touchdown or 2. Thing is that's super weird about this year's games, though, is that if a home team gets down on an away team by 2 or 3 touchdowns, it could get ugly. And the main reason why I say that is because, like, when you don't have crowds or anything, it just gets super discouraging. Like, we saw that a prime example would be Navy and BYU from week number 1. I mean, Navy just got absolutely steamrolled, and the reason for that is because they got down by 2 touchdowns pretty early on. So, yeah, it just got rough from there. And that's kind of what I think you could see this week, especially if we see some teams getting down on themselves. So, yeah, watch out for that for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I hope the state of Illinois opens back up by Thanksgiving because I'd like to go to the Ohio State and Illinois game. Yeah, honestly, I really hope in general everything will be back and opened up by Thanksgiving. I think it's a possibility. But, I mean, yeah, we thought it was a possibility back in April. So, really, who knows what's going to happen. What else we got? Where's the mascot head? I don't have any mascot heads. Actually, I do have a corn head. I'm not quite sure where that thing's at. Might be in my closet. Maybe I should break it out one day. That'd be kind of funny. Maybe I should do that for the kickoff of the Big Ten. I'm sure Alpha would like that. How do you think we can do this year? Can we win the Big Ten? That comes from Minnesota fan. Yeah, Minnesota this season in general. The thing is that kind of is a bit concerning for me in Minnesota is that they weren't wanting to play football going into this season. I mean, it'd be something if a team was motivated going into this season, but the thing is about Minnesota is that, I mean, they didn't really want to play going into this season. I mean, you got Michigan in week number 1, and then you got Maryland, of course, week number 2, Illinois. So, I mean, overall, I mean, your first few weeks are not all that difficult. I mean, Maryland and Indiana or Illinois are both pretty winnable games. And then you got Iowa, of course, you got Purdue, Wisconsin, and then you got Nebraska to finish off the season on the 12th. So, I mean, all around, as far as your crossover games go, you got to play Maryland, which they're pretty easy. And then your second crossover game would be, it looks like, what is your second crossover game? Oh, that'd be Michigan. So you got Michigan and Maryland as your 2 crossover games. So that should be interesting to see what happens there. So that Michigan game is going to be very important, especially for especially for Minnesota. But I think Minnesota, looking at their 8 games, I could see them going 5-3 or 6-2. To be honest with you, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Where's the honestly, I don't really have any college game day locations. I mean, I'm not really paying attention to that. I'm just giving you guys a pregame show. But I'd say, yeah, the game of the week would probably be, it'd definitely be Louisville and Miami. I mean, really, there's no other game that really strikes my mind as more intriguing than that game this week. So that's what I'm gonna go with there. NCAA football sleeper team this season. That's a good question. I mean, Minnesota's going to be good. They're definitely going to be a sleeper team. But I think Indiana, watch out for them. They possibly could get 5 wins this season. I mean, looking through the rest of the Big Ten, I mean, really, yeah, Minnesota, Indiana, they're the first 2 that strikes my mind. Florida, watch out for them. If you're looking at college football playoff terms, I think Florida's definitely a team to watch out for. They could easily make it to the college football playoff this season, especially now with Georgia not having Jamie Newman. They definitely need to capitalize on that. I think that Florida this season could be very, very good, especially if they manage to beat off Georgia. And also Georgia, they just don't look as good, especially now with having Jamie Newman anymore. Jamie Newman was going to be a big part of their team this season. I mean, he was a big reason why I thought Georgia would win the SEC East, but now that he's gone, that's going to be very, very concerning, I think, for Georgia, and I think for Florida that's going to be huge. That is something that Florida definitely needs to capitalize on moving forward. Alpha says Minnesota's going to be 5-0 heading into the Wisconsin game. Let's look at their schedule real quick. Yeah, so you got Michigan in week 1 at home, Maryland, Illinois, Iowa, and then Purdue. Yeah, there's a good chance that they are 5-0 heading into that game. I mean, really, Minnesota's got one of the easier schedules, I'd say, of the entire Big Ten. I mean, you got Michigan, that's winnable. If you can beat off Michigan, that's going to be a big, big start to the season. And then you got Maryland on the road, Illinois on the road. You got Iowa then. Iowa's going to be a tough one. Watch out for Iowa. But otherwise, I mean, Maryland and Illinois are both very winnable games. Same thing with Purdue. So, yeah, Minnesota could easily be 5-0. I definitely agree. That Wisconsin game is going to be very, very important for the Big Ten West. And it's going to probably be one of the most impactful games of the Big Ten. It's kind of like Minnesota and Wisconsin is kind of comparable to Penn State and Ohio State from the Big Ten East. It's basically that one big game of the Big Ten West. So watch out for Minnesota and Wisconsin. I think it's easily going to be one of those 2 teams between Minnesota and Wisconsin that will win the Big Ten West. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm so glad the Big Ten's back. That's going to be great. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. I mean, I'm hoping the Pac-12 comes back too. There have been rumors that they are coming back, but really we've not really heard a clear definition as to whether or not they are coming back. I mean, we've heard some rumors once again, maybe October, sometime in October they'll be coming back, but once again, who knows? It's just such a crazy year. I can't wait till it's normal again. Yeah, Minnesota definitely, they should have a very good shot at making the Big Ten championship. Looking at Wisconsin's schedule though this season, I mean, you start off the season against Illinois. You got Nebraska on the road in week 2, Purdue at home. Then you got Michigan, Northwestern, Minnesota. So your 2 crossover games. Really, you got to look at the crossover games to determine how tough of a schedule is in the Big Ten. So basically, if you're looking at Wisconsin, your crossover games are Michigan and Indiana. So really, it's you guys. I'd say Wisconsin does have a tougher schedule than they do have a tougher schedule than Minnesota, but not by a lot. If you're looking at the toughest schedule in the Big Ten, I mean, looking at Illinois, your crossover games are Ohio State and Rutgers, not bad. For Iowa, it would be Michigan State and Penn State. So Iowa's got a pretty tough schedule. Nebraska, Ohio State, and Penn State. They totally did that to Nebraska on purpose. I mean, Ohio State and Penn State. So Nebraska, I'd probably say, is the toughest schedule in the Big Ten because, they're having to play 2 of the toughest teams for their crossover games. What else we got? I mean, Northwestern's got Maryland and what's their other one? Maryland and Michigan State, not bad. Then Purdue has, it looks like, Indiana and Rutgers. So yeah, Purdue's got a pretty easy schedule. And then looking at Wisconsin, you got Michigan and Indiana. So really, yeah, definitely I'd say Nebraska's got a very tough one. As far as the Big Ten East go, it looks like Indiana's got Purdue. Let me see where Wisconsin's at. Does anyone have Wisconsin and Minnesota? Doesn't look like it. So I definitely say Nebraska's got the toughest schedule in the Big Ten this season, having to play both of your crossover games against top 10 teams. So that's where I'd say there. But yeah, it should be. I'm just glad the Big Ten football's back in general. It's going to be fun to see who ends up coming on top of that. Things about this week, though, as far as the real college football world goes, I mean, lots and lots of great games could have happened. I mean, Houston and Baylor could have been a great game. That got postponed. BYU and Army, that would have been a ranked versus a ranked game. That also got postponed due to, I believe, corona concerns. And they got Charlotte and North Carolina also postponed. That was scheduled for this week. I would have liked to see North Carolina play again. I mean, North Carolina looked very good last week. They had a blowout win against Syracuse. Yeah, they looked very good. As far as other teams that look good, I mean, it was really bad for the Big 12 last week. We saw Kansas State go down to Arkansas State. I mean, we saw, what else did we see? I mean, Oklahoma and Texas played very well, but as far as the rest of the Big 12 goes, I mean, Texas Tech almost lost to Houston Baptist. We saw Kansas get beat up by Coastal Carolina. All around, it was a bad week for the Big 12 in week number 2. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in week 3. Okay, sounds good. See you, Alpha. Thanks for stopping. Have you heard that Georgia is starting a redshirt freshman over JT Daniels? I actually have not. I really haven't been paying attention much to Georgia, so that would be that's gonna be interesting. I'd expect JT Daniels would win that starting position. Because I mean, he's a much better quarterback in my opinion. If game time starts in 14 minutes, I believe we'll be going for another maybe 10 minutes or so. We'll probably cut it off just 5 minutes before the games start. And this will be our regular scheduled time as well, every Saturday morning, folks. Looking back at week number 3, though, some of your games, I'll get into my selections pretty quick. But as far as the rest of the games go, I mean, you got SMU and Texas coming up at 6 Eastern. That could be an interesting one. I mean, SMU was very good last year. They're not as good this year, and I don't think they will be as good this year. But I mean, yeah, they're still going to be a decent team. You also got Appalachian State and Marshall. That should be an interesting one. 3:30 Eastern. Appalachian State's ranked 23rd. That game is also in Marshall, so that should be interesting. Appalachian State is favored by 5 there. We also got Louisiana. Louisiana had an interesting game last week. They beat off Iowa State in a big one. They've got a road trip to Georgia State today at noon Eastern, coming up in just 10 minutes. And Louisiana is actually ranked 19th, so that should be an interesting matchup there. I mean, Louisiana looked very good last week. They beat off Iowa State 31-14. That was a blowout win for Louisiana. It looked very good for sure. Then we also got Wake Forest and NC State. That could be an interesting matchup. I mean, Wake Forest with Sam Hartman at quarterback. Obviously, they're not as good as they were last year with Jamie Newman by any means, but they're still a good team. So, I mean, I'll take Wake Forest over NC State here today, but that should be a close one, especially considering it's an NC State. What else we got? Syracuse Pittsburgh should be a good one coming up in just 10 minutes. Pittsburgh's actually favored by 21.5 in that game. That is a very heavy spread towards Pittsburgh considering they're both conference opponents, and they're both, I mean, Syracuse last week did not play very well at all. I mean, looking at how they did last week, they got beat up by North Carolina. But then again, North Carolina is pretty good this year, so I still don't understand why the spread is so heavy towards Pittsburgh. But, I mean, yeah, you got Oklahoma State with the 23.5 spread over Tulsa. Once again, BYU and Army was postponed. Navy and Tulsa, that's a good game. Watch out for that one. That one's coming up on ABC in about 10 minutes. Yeah, Tulsa's 1-0. Navy got destroyed a couple of weeks ago by, I believe, BYU. And so, yeah, Navy did not get off to a good start at all, but it's in Tulsa. So, I mean, the crazy thing is that's there too, is that Navy's actually favored in that one by 6.5. So, yeah, Navy's actually favored in that game against Tulsa. Well, anyway, let's start getting into some Saturday selections. Obviously, we only have 5 more minutes left here before we are going to be on to the college football games. Obviously, games get kicked off in about 10 minutes from now. Starting off at noon Eastern, we've got Tulsa and Oklahoma State. Pretty easy game there. I'm going with Oklahoma State over Tulsa in a blowout. I'd say Oklahoma State wins that one by 20-30. And they're actually favored in the spread by 23.5 once again. Oklahoma State is also ranked 11th. Going into that matchup. We also got Navy and Tulane, my bad. Tulane is actually at home for that one. Navy, of course, going into that game. I mean, Navy's had a tough week 1 matchup against BYU, and so Navy is off to a slow start. But I'm going to give Tulane the win here. I think Tulane does get the win over Navy here, and I think it's going to be close. I think Navy fights all the way to the end, but I'm going to go with Tulane in that one as well. So Tulane gets the upset over Navy. We also got Syracuse and Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with Pitt in that one. I mean, Pittsburgh looked very good in week number 1. They're actually ranked this week. They're ranked at number 25. They had a shutout against Austin Peay. And of course, I understand that they're not FBS by any means, but I mean, that was a big win there. 55-0. That all around is a good win there for Pittsburgh last week. And they're actually favored very much in that one by 21.5. So I got Pittsburgh over Syracuse. What else we got? We got Boston College and Duke. That should be a very good matchup. Looking forward to that one. Duke, of course, is 0-1. Boston College has not played a game yet this season. I'm going to go with Duke in that one. I think even though Duke is 0-1 right now, and of course they lost last week to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a good team, and they actually kept up with Notre Dame considering how good they are. So I'm going to give Duke the win in the end there. We also got South Florida and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is ranked 7th going into that one. That game's also going to be at 2:30 Eastern, so it's going to be your first afternoon game. Notre Dame gets the win in the end there over South Florida. I don't expect any upsets there by any means. But yeah, Notre Dame, I've got them getting the win there over South Florida. Both teams are actually 1-0 as well going into that matchup. We got UCF and Georgia Tech, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. UCF is favored by 7.5. It's also going to be in Georgia Tech, so that's going to be kind of interesting. Georgia Tech last week had a good first game. They got a big win over Florida State on the road, 16-13. So both teams are pretty equally matched, I would say. I mean, Georgia Tech getting off to a good start against Florida State, which Florida State is a team that I thought would be pretty good this season. So, but yeah, nonetheless, I've got UCF getting the win there over Georgia Tech. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to be a very close game, and we could easily see Georgia Tech get the win there. But I've got UCF in the end over Georgia Tech. Citadel and Clemson, that is a no-brainer. Clemson gets the win there, I'd say by at least 50. We got Miami and Louisville coming up at 7:30. That is your Saturday night football game. Probably the biggest game of the week as well. And yeah, of course, Miami is ranked 17th. Louisville's number 18. Both teams extremely equally matched. But of course, if you saw my preview on this game earlier this week, I had Miami winning, and I still got Miami winning in that one. I'm actually going to go against the spread for this game. I'm going to say Miami gets a win over Louisville here tonight. But it's going to be very close. Very good game. I'd say it's moderately scoring. I think my score prediction was like 31-27, if I'm correct on that one. We got Wake Forest and NC State coming up at 8. Also a good matchup there. Both teams pretty equally matched. Wake Forest lost last week. However, I have got, I got Wake Forest winning that one still. I think Sam Hartman at quarterback, even though he's not as good as Jamie Newman, they still get the win over NC State in the end. As far as other games go, at noon Eastern, we also got Austin Peay again against 13th ranked Cincinnati. And that should be a fun matchup there. Obviously, Austin Peay has gotten off to a rough start, but Cincinnati is actually favored by 41 in that one. And I take the spread. I've got Cincinnati winning that one pretty easily. Louisiana will get the win over Georgia State. Also at noon Eastern, we got Liberty at Western Kentucky. I'm going to take Liberty in that one. I'm going to go against the spread and say Western Kentucky takes a loss there. And I think Appalachian State then against Marshall at 3:30 Eastern. I'm going to take Appalachian State in that one. But it's going to be very close. Watch out for that one especially. As far as the rest of the games go, let's see what we got. We got Troy and Middle Tennessee. I really haven't done much research on any of these teams, but the spread currently has Troy by 3. So yeah, I'll probably go with Troy as well. SMU, I've got them over North Texas. I've got Louisiana Tech over Southern Miss. And then I've got Louisiana Monroe over Texas State. And then lastly, UTEP over Abilene Christian. Anyway, with that being said, that about wraps up our college game day for today. Games get started in about 5 minutes. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Once again, if you like these live streams, be sure to let me know. Maybe slap some likes on this live stream as well. Really appreciate it once again, guys. Means a lot to me. And of course, tomorrow, once again, Sunday night countdown coming up. Same time as last week, 7:30 Eastern, just right before our Sunday night football game gets kicked off. We'll be covering the entire week of college football along with the entire week of NFL football. Of course, we got NFL week number 2 tomorrow, so that's going to be really fun to see some of the games next week, or tomorrow, which, of course, we got the Patriots and the Seahawks. A lot of great games tomorrow as well. So, anyway, thanks again for tuning in, guys. College football gets started in 5 minutes. We'll be doing this next week again as well. Once again, sorry about the lags. In case if that bothers you, we'll try to get that fixed as much as possible. Once again, this is only like the 3rd live stream on this channel, so I'm still trying to get that fixed.